Hey everybody, it's Jay, it's Nick. We are back from the full 24 at High Plains Raceway outside of Denver. Let me say briefly, the full 24, there's all kinds of horrifying rigmarole that goes with that. People up at 2 in the morning. We've got guys waving flags. You got to have 3 crews rotating around. It's a huge pain in the ass, and the drivers hate it at 3 in the morning, and we still do it anyway.
And because this was a full 24-hour race, we had a bigger judge crew than usual. We had Mary, Bob, Corey with assistance from Tom Webb. They all did a great job, and despite having to be up at 3 in the morning, they brought their own new penalties, including make your own leather key fob, story time, and Supreme Court.
All right,
Be seated. Now, what do you need for a full 24 if you're a race team? Well, number one, you need reliability, just like DAE and their Porsche 944.
Fortunately for everyone else with German cars at this race, the DAE 944 was really the only one with problems.
Beer Barrel Polka, Pennsylvania Polka, Too Fat Polka, she's too fat for me, to Tavern in the Town, Whoop-de-doo, Ohio Polka. These famous hits and many more are played by the all-time greats.
Now, for a 24-hour race, you do need reliability, so what you really need is something Japanese.
Some teams conducted their own A/B reliability testing with 2 car rosters made up of 2 completely different cars. That way they can scientifically find out which one is more reliable. First, you've got Zitronen Dumpkopf, which have a 32-valve swapped V8 Mustang, and a Geo Metro. You may remember this team from Thunderhill earlier this year, where the Mustang blew up in 17 different ways, and the Geo just drove around and around with no issues. Well, here at HPR, this is how that worked out.
You know, I think Team Ran Out of Talent also has a Geo Metro. Their car's a Honda Civic, though, so I'm sure those things ran perfectly. Hey, there's a lesson there. I don't know what it is, though.
Get to know Geo Metro.
Some teams, like Gun Barrel Cobras, just lean into their unreliability. One of their team guys is keeping score by getting a tattoo of every engine the team has blown up on his leg.
And then you've got Team Are You Saying There's Something Wrong With My Gear? Another fairly inexplicable team name, but we're not going to get into that now. What we're going to get into is they brought a Jaguar XJS. Flawless plan for reliability, right? No, they solved that problem. They took out the V12 and put in a Chevy small block. Now, at the last race, that small block did what small blocks do, and it totally blew up. And instead of just throwing it away and spending another $40 at Pick and Pull for another small block, they said, no, our fix is going to be, we're going to take out the pistons, we're going to take out the valves, block off the ports, we're just going to turn it into a V6. That's going to make everything better. Well, they did that. They put it on a test stand. They had a throttle control with a bicycle lever still attached to the bicycle. These guys are engineering geniuses. Now, it did run well enough to show up for tech, and it made it through tech, and I mean, look, it's perfect. Not surprisingly, that didn't last 24 hours either. Didn't even last 24 minutes, and they said, screw it, we're just going to put in a 4.3 Chevy V6. It's going to be fine. It was not fine. That also blew up.
As you know, we hand out $1,000 to the team with the best costumes and themes. It's called the Halloween Meets Gasoline Prize. At HPR, there were several serious contenders for that award, including Savage Orchid Racing with a McDonald's Grimace theme.
Come on, put these bad boys, Grimace.
And then there was the Balkan Express Mustang team, kind of a Reno 911 thing. They were great, particularly this one guy. He spent the entire race writing people tickets for things like checking out officers' butt in tight shorts. He was great.
Perennial theme masters Salty Thunder Racing brought a Corvette with some classic Corvette outfits and the requisite car show info board. Team Captain Jeff was dressed as an old guy toting around an oxygen tank while simultaneously chain-smoking a pack of Cools. This was a character actually based on a real person that he saw at the NCM Corvette race in Kentucky.
If you're a person of a certain age, you will appreciate Scuderia Atari.
For some reason, Team Donut Pass Us had a film crew with all of this professional gear following them around for the whole weekend. And that makes sense, because if you have tens of thousands of dollars in video equipment and a professional videography crew, then the car that you want to focus on is a PT Cruiser.
And there was the Pirates, Mischiefs, and their Celica. Hella sweet.
Then you had the Big Sky Back Road Burners. They were a great bunch of guys, first-time racers. They had a crusty-ass Mustang. They had swapped in a 351 V8 from a van. The wheels fit in such a way that told us that the team had bought them for some other car, clearly not a Mustang with a 351 from a van. Also, little details about this swap weren't quite right, such as this shifter position.
For the second time in Lemons, we were blessed with Cagafuego and their 1977 Celica. This car's got it all. It's got a 20R. It's got a grill from a hardware store. I mean, this is Toyota legend at its finest.
Before we get to the I Got Screwed award, we have a couple of honorable mentions. First, you got Dad Bod Car Mod and their 07 Yaris. They've swapped in a 2ZZ engine from a Matrix XRS.
No shit.
And at HPR, they blew up that engine, they replaced it, they blew up the clutch, then they blew up the replacement engine. As an aside, we've only seen 2 Yarises in Lemons. The other one is completely stock and has no problems.
Really? Well, fancy that.
Now, about a week before the race, we got an email from Seat of Your Pants Racing saying that their Jetta had blown up and could they get a refund of the entry fees. And we said, hell no, we don't do that. Making a car that's gonna run, that's the challenge. Now, they didn't complain. In fact, they did the opposite of complain. They did exactly the right thing. They said, how are we going to solve the problem? They went on the internet, they found another Lemons car, they went out and got it. They got the Dodge Celebrity Challenge car X Ricky Schroeder Provenance, which also blew up.
I Got Screwed went to Kowloon Express in their 2002 Infiniti G20. This team, they towed all the way to Colorado from my hometown of Oakland, California. One thing about towing a long way over some of the tallest mountain passes in the country is that it really sets you up for winning an I Got Screwed award when your Infiniti totally the bed. The car wasn't completely dead though, or so they thought. It had a broken timing chain. They figured, we'll just replace the chain, it'll run perfectly good as new. Of course, they didn't have a replacement chain, so they came to us in the middle of the night to see if we knew of any teams that did have one.
And they were in luck, because one of the Audi teams earlier had given us some bling of an Audi timing chain with a big Audi logo on it. You know what? Kind of looked the same.
Sort of, yeah.
So they took the 2 chains
Two chains.
and were hammering, grinding, banging to assemble one working one.
As the team worked overnight to solve this timing chain problem, I was over there casually looking at their engine. There were possibly some signs of other problems than just the timing chain. They were in the zone. I didn't make a big deal out of it. I didn't want to bother them. Miraculously, the next morning, they showed up with a running car. Truth be told, wasn't running good.
In fact, it was running so not good, they finally decided, look, the morally right thing to do here, easier for everybody. We are not going to take this out of the track. We don't want to oil the track down. Oh, and also our top speed is 6 miles an hour. The judge's choice went to Doppler Racing and their E30. Their old E30. They're such an old E30. Some of the old timers, Anton, etc., think this car might have raced at Altamont. Since then, it's changed hands a bunch of times, finally landed with this rookie team, and they decided they were going to do it right. So they put in struts and all kinds of racy equipment, and they really got this thing tuned up just right. So much so that the first 3 drivers went out, spun it spectacularly, and earned an exceedingly long sit-down and chit-chat with us in the penalty box for their trouble.
The judges noticed that this team didn't have the normal temperament of a team that racks up 3 black flags in 15 minutes of track time. You know, the temperament of a real racer.
We got trouble down. We got a major fight going on down here.
It was really the opposite. They were really nice folks, so the judges suggested to the team maybe there's actually something wrong with the car and not so much your driving, and maybe you'd let Lemon's master competitor, Anton, who was at Altamont, to take the car out for a few evaluation laps.
They said, sure, we'll do that. Anton went out, he came back in 2 laps later and said, this thing is all f***ed up. They started taking it apart. Turns out strut tops were on backward. There were bars that were in the wrong place. I mean, there's all kinds of things wrong with the setup. Anton gave them a whole list. They worked down the list through the night. When they got it all put back together, checked the car out again, was running great. We never saw them again. Totally clean from there on in. Judge's choice.
The eBay Motors heroic fix went to Arc Blast and their 76 Datsun 620. This wasn't any ordinary Datsun 620, it was an EV converted Datsun 620. As you know, we have a standing prize that no one has claimed yet, 50 grand for the first team to win a Lemons race overall in an electric vehicle. So this team figured, let's give it a shot. This truck has a custom bed-mounted battery system and electric motor, a Miata rear subframe and suspension, radiators for the battery cooling mounted under the hood, a trick setup for battery management, regenerative braking, bunch of other cool stuff. The only problem was everything that they had done seemed about 75% complete. So from the very start of tech, basically until the checkered flag 24 hours after the race started, the team was continuously working on the car, sneaking out periodically for some test laps.
So the first time the battery crapped out, which didn't take very long, frankly, they said, okay, I guess we gotta build a charger now. It's the little things, people. So they're out there with jumper cables and flux capacitors and self-sealing stem bolts, trying to make something work. To be honest, we had no idea what the f*** these people were doing. But you know what? They didn't explode, they didn't open a wormhole to the Gamma Quadrant, and they didn't transport us all back to an alternate 1985. So you know what? Heroic fix.
Organizer's choice went to Trash Racing and their Crown Vic. Now, despite how professionally prepared this car looked, this was actually a rookie team with little to no racing experience. All of this made sense once we heard the backstory. The team captain is a machinist, clearly a very accomplished machinist. He admitted right off of the bat, I know how to build things. I don't know if I know how to drive things. So that's why the car looked like it was prepped by a pro shop, and it turned out the driving was actually fine too, despite half of their team never having been on track. And this, their first race, a full 24 hours, that was the first 24-hour event where we required lit car numbers. We could easily read their numbers day and night. They're teams from Altamont who can't do regular numbers. For that alone, this team deserved the organizer's choice.
The regional award was Why You Break Classic, and it went to Green Beret Racing and their Plymouth Satellite. This was another rookie team, but instead of being made up of machinists, it was made of Army buddies. And their Plymouth Satellite, well, it didn't look as good as that Crown Vic.
Yeah, this was not a Barrett-Jackson grade Mopar, let's just say. It had a body that looked like it had been through a meteor shower. It had Bondo coming off in chunks under the hood, which was not in good condition. It had a smog-era 400 V8 that probably produced less horsepower than a modern Honda Civic. The one thing on the car that was really nice were the brakes.
Yeah, as you know, brakes do not count toward the price limit in Lemons, so they decided to go all in. They got 6 piston Willwoods, they had it dialed. Well, guess what was the thing that gave them the most trouble all race long?
Surely not the 6 piston Willwoods.
Well, yes.
We aren't exactly sure why they didn't work, but every time they moved the car, the brakes would tighten more and more, clamping off the remaining 85 horsepower left in the 400. It got slower and slower. It was a nightmare for them. Why You Break Classic?
The Halloween Meets Gasoline prize did ultimately have to go to Savage Orchid Racing and their McDonald's/Grimace birthday theme. In addition to Grimace, the car was purple, it had Grimace vanity plates, the whole team had McD's staff outfits, they sang the little McDonald's jingle all weekend, they handed out balloons, they brought custom Lemons themed Happy Meals to BS, they made purple Grimace shakes for everybody. It was non-stop for 24 hours. And I'm not making this up, the week week after this race, NASCAR driver Bubba Wallace announced his new livery, which was Grimace from McDonald's. It's life imitating art.
Are you loving it?
I'm liking it.
And that takes us to the index of effluency, the very top award, and that went to Soiled Suits and their Camaro. This is a 74 Camaro. It's got the full late night parking lot at Circle K treatment. It's got crusty chrome torque thrust. It is a truly terrible car. At one point in the middle of the night, an oil line let go. All the headlights blew up. There could possibly have been a little fire. We don't really know for sure. They oiled down the entire track. But you know what? They got hauled back in and they stuck it out and they resurrected the car. This is only their 6th race. Probably the worst car out there, and they finished mid-pack. That, my friends, is how you do IOE.
Here's Lemons in a nutshell.
Every second you don't subscribe or watch one of these videos, another Vega is sent to the crusher. Won't you help us save Classic?